We're queuing things up today in the green pastures of St. Paul's Hospital. With me on camera as always is Rick Von Schmidt. On the morning of September 1st, 1922, Vancouverite Marie Middleton was going through a difficult labor here. Marie screamed, "I want a girl. It must be a girl. I want a dancer." There was a storm raging outside. Sleet and hail assaulted the windows of the delivery room, and the baby finally emerged just as thunder clapped loudly. Marie named her new daughter Margaret Yvonne Middleton and nicknamed her Peggy. And Peggy always wondered if that thunderstorm was a premonition of her personality or her incredible life. Peggy grew up to be entertainment superstar Yvonne De Carlo. I just finished reading her autobiography. It's a phenomenal book and I highly recommend it. She includes some great details of growing up in Vancouver as well as a few pictures. These are the first taken of her. I thought I might explore a few of the places she writes about, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. Most of young Peggy's home life was at her grandparents' huge white frame house at 1728 Comox Street. Sadly, the house is gone now and replaced with this private garden reserved for residents of the neighboring apartment tower. The house was full of family and Peggy loved it. Her grandparents moved to Vancouver from Europe in 1912 because a doctor told them it was a healthier climate for children. And young Peggy started as an entertainer. It was in this house where she danced and put on plays for her family. Young Peggy didn't have far to go to school. Lord Roberts Elementary School was right across the street, and it's still here. She loved school and was a good student. One day her teacher told the class to write a poem that opens with, "As I was walking down the street," just as I'm doing right now. The teacher liked young Peggy's poem entitled "A Little Boy, the Best," and submitted it to the Vancouver Sun newspaper for a poetry contest. Young Peggy won first prize and a check for $5. She includes the poem in the book. It starts, "As I was walking down the street, a little boy I chanced to meet. His clothes were ragged as could be. He had a cut upon his knee." And later, Peggy spent some time at King Edward High School on Oak Street, which is gone now, but check out that stone fence there, and in particular those stanchions. Well, the old stone fence is still here. Peggy had a boyfriend at the high school named Gordie Noel. Young Gordie was the star rugby player and even more aggressive off the field. When he took Peggy out for dates, he would exhibit some daredevil behavior by driving his car on the sidewalk at 60 miles an hour. Peggy was scared to death, but thrived on the excitement. Peggy found a slower pace here at St. Paul's Church on Jervis Street. Her grandparents were very religious and they would bring her here on Sunday mornings. Occasionally she and her cousin Kenny would be trusted to go off to church on their own with coins in hand to drop in the collection plate. But on those days, Peggy convinced Kenny to instead go to Stanley Park and spend the coins on candy. Later, when she was a teenager, Peggy made sure to find time for the church's youth group. She loved singing and always looked forward to Friday night choir practice. Here she is in her choir gown outside St. Paul's with Cousin Kenny. Between 1922 and 1978, there was a swimming facility right here at the foot of Nicholas Street. It was called the Crystal Pool, and I think we have a few pictures. Rick, you want to put those up? Yeah, here we go. Peggy had many wonderful summer days in Vancouver. Her mum Marie enthusiastically took her to English Bay, 2nd and 3rd beaches, for sunshine and swimming. She says she was born to swim, and her favorite place was right here at the Crystal Pool. All right, now we're downtown at the corner of Smythe and Seymour. This is the Orpheum Theater here. And check out this piece of the Orpheum. That was an add-on built in 1983. And if you look at that white little semicircle there, the arrow's pointing to, there it is again, prior to 1983, just to give you a sense of it. And this building here, I believe this is 887 Seymour, and that's where the June Roper BC School of Dance was, and that's where Peggy took lessons and started to get some performing gigs through her good buddy, June Roper. June Roper got her students gigs around town, things like Stars of Tomorrow, in which Peggy had relative success. She says she really came to life, though, with shows here at the Orpheum Theatre. Her debut was in a Waikiki Review, in which she helped with the choreography. She says the audience loved it. Here's Peggy at the Orpheum in that show in 1939. She's third from the left. She says she had a crush on one of the other dancers in the show. She would sneak out between performances with the young lad to a nearby bakery to devour forbidden glazed donuts. And here at the York Theatre on Commercial Drive, Peggy performed with the Vancouver Little Theatre Association. All right, we're on Columbia Street in Chinatown looking south here. And Columbia used to end right here at Pender Street. There was a big restaurant right here called the Mandarin Gardens. It advertised a stellar review with imported acts. I think we got a picture, Rick. You want to put that up? Yeah, here we go. Marie convinced the owner of the Mandarin Gardens that her daughter Peggy was a top dancer and singer. Somehow Peggy put together a costume and act, but it was a disaster. She walked off the stage at the end of her performance without any applause. Right here on Hastings Street, there used to be a beautiful old vaudeville theater called the Beacon. Rick, you want to put that picture up? And Peggy had another challenging gig here as a referee for a fight between a man and a kangaroo. After it knocked out the dude, the foul-smelling beast pogoed around Peggy, put its paws on her shoulders, and made a meal of her pompadour hairdo. Peggy's budding entertainment career was not looking good. But it all changed right here at the corner of Georgia and Burrard. In 1938, Peggy came here to see the manager of the Palomar nightclub. She acted like a big star. She told him she might consider performing at his club. Dude took the bait and hired her. Here's the old Palomar. Peggy thought she needed a more exotic name for such an important gig, so she went with her middle name and her mother's maiden name. Yvonne De Carlo's solo song and dance act was a big hit at the Palomar. Big hit. Her success prompted Marie to take Yvonne to Hollywood, where she soon became an international superstar. 6 years later, in September 1945, Yvonne De Carlo planned her belated homecoming. She was anxious to see the old places and familiar faces of her childhood in Vancouver. She was mobbed by the press when she arrived at the airport. They dubbed her a returning hero. She reunited with her family and reminisced about the good old days. And the Palomar nightclub initiated some publicity as they hosted Yvonne De Carlo Night. She returned to the nightclub where her career took off. Yvonne and her mum Marie were dressed in their finery, she says, and a gentleman came to her table and introduced himself. It was Howard Hughes. They got together the next day, and Howard took her here to Capilano Golf Course in West Vancouver. He tried to teach her to swing a club, and despite Yvonne's lack of golfing ability, she had a good time. After a fun week in Vancouver, Yvonne had a big farewell party here at the Hotel Vancouver. It was in a large suite on an upper floor, and all the dignitaries were invited. Even Yvonne's former dance teacher, June Roper, was here to say farewell. Yvonne De Carlo went on to have a long and very successful career. She was multi-talented. She was a dramatic and comedic actor. She was an expert dancer from ballet to tap to swing. She recorded hundreds of songs and everything from pop to opera. She received dozens of awards for her performances on stage and screen. I grew up knowing her as Lily Munster on my favorite TV show, The Munsters. Sadly, we lost Yvonne in 2007. She was 85. I thought we'd wrap things up today Head inside the Hotel Vancouver where Yvonne came for her farewell party in 1945. Hope you enjoyed this little taste of old Vancouver as she once was. Thanks to Bev Sugarman for makeup and Jewel Hillmere for wardrobe. Special thanks to Yvonne's son Bruce Morgan for his help today. Yvonne's signature song was called I'm Still Here. And Bruce, I can tell you that your mom is still here in Vancouver. We will never forget her. On behalf of Rick and myself, thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time. That's a good bee.